is paid for by the partners of Kenneth Copeland Ministries. Visit kcn.org/support.
Welcome to Victory News tonight for Friday, March 6, 2026. I'm Mike Garofalo.
And I'm Fiona Hernandez. Here are a few of the headlines we're watching for you now.
As epic fury continues, the discussion is turning to who will lead Iran. Former Ohio Congressman and distinguished conservative Bob McEwen will offer his insight.
And as the dust settles on Kristi Noem's exit and Markwayne Mullin as the new DHS head, many are asking what led to it all. Ahead, we'll talk with political analyst and the host of Ringside Politics, Jeff Cruaire, about that and more. But first, let's go to tonight's top stories. The Bureau of Labor Statistics announced today that 92,000 jobs were lost in February, dramatically missing the forecasted 55,000 hires and a surprising decline after January's 126,000 increase. The numbers led the unemployment rate to tick up to 4.4% from January's 4.3%. The news, along with uncertainty over the ongoing conflict with Iran, sent the Dow tumbling 894 points, or 1.9% this morning, while the S&P 500 and NASDAQ fell 1.6% and 1.4% respectively. According to AAA, the national average price for a gallon of gas has jumped nearly 27 cents to $3.25 in the last week, with crude oil trading at more than $70 a barrel. The House of Representatives on Thursday passed a bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security, aiming to end a weeks-long partial government shutdown. The measure cleared the House in a 221-207 vote, with only 4 Democrats voting for the measure. If the GOP is able to secure 60 votes in the Senate, the bill would fund DHS through the end of the fiscal year on September 30th. The measure would restore funding for national security agencies, including TSA and border enforcement. While he was able to force a runoff during Tuesday's primary, Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez has now dropped out of the race to defend his congressional seat. On Wednesday, Gonzalez, who was already under an ethics investigation, finally admitted to an extramarital affair with a former aide who later died by suicide. On Thursday, the leadership of the House put out a joint statement encouraging Gonzalez to address the allegations with his constituents and colleagues and drop out of the race. On Thursday night, Gonzalez did just that, putting out a statement saying, in part, "After deep reflection and with the support of my loving family, I have decided not to seek re-election while serving out the rest of this Congress with the same commitment I've always had to my district." Gonzalez's opponent, Brandon Herrera, declared victory after the announcement and thanked Gonzalez for making the right decision. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton shared some unexpected words on Thursday. He offered to drop out of his U.S. Senate runoff against incumbent John Cornyn if the Senate can pass the Save America Act, which calls for a federal voter ID mandate. After neither Paxton nor Cornyn received 50% of the vote in the Texas primary on March 3rd, a runoff is scheduled for May 26th. Paxton's pledge comes hours after President Trump said he will be endorsing one of the Texas Senate candidates, and he expected the other to drop out. The president opted not to endorse any of the 3 GOP Senate candidates in the primary. Mike?
Thank you, Fiora. This is day 7 of Operation Epic Fury, and President Trump says it's too late for Iran to make a deal. Here's part of his Truth Social post from earlier today. There will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender after that, and the selection of a great and acceptable leader or leaders. In his post, the president vowed to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction, making it economically bigger, better, and stronger than ever before, and called to make Iran great again. According to Fox News, the Israeli Defense Forces eliminated 6 Iranian missile launchers Thursday, minutes before they would have been used to launch missiles toward Israel. Meanwhile, the Jerusalem Post is reporting that Russia was providing Iran with intelligence on locations of U.S. assets in the Middle East region. Beijing says it will dispatch a special envoy to push for mediation as the war with Iran continues. Foreign Minister Wang Yi told the United Arab Emirates the red line of protecting protecting civilians must not be crossed, and that attacks on non-military targets and threats to global shipping routes cannot continue. Fox News reports Wang also chastised Israel this week, saying China opposes their military action with the U.S. against Iran and insists it must stop immediately, arguing it only creates new and lasting problems. A Pakistani businessman accused of trying to hire hitmen to kill U.S. political figures, including then former President Donald Trump, told jurors on Wednesday in New York that Iran forced his hand. 47-year-old Asif Merchant testified Iran's Revolutionary Guard threatened his family, pressuring him into a 2024 plot targeting Donald Trump, then President Joe Biden, and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. According to Fox News, Merchant was indicted after being caught on camera outlining the scheme on a napkin to an undercover informant. He later tried to hire what he believed were two hitmen who were actually FBI agents. If convicted, Asif Merchant faces up to life in prison. Tim.
Mike, the U.S. State Department said Thursday that nearly 20,000 U.S. citizens have returned home safely from the Middle East since Operation Epic Fury began. Assistant Secretary of State Dylan Johnson said the figure didn't include those who had safely relocated to other countries or those who had departed the Middle East but were still en route to the United States. For several days now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been directing his department to coordinate charter flights and ground transportation and continue ramp those up. And despite the nonstop barrage of negative coverage from the mainstream press, Real Clear Politics' latest research reveals President Donald Trump's approval rating is beating his fellow presidents. Harry Enton broke the news to CNN's audience.
21st century president's own party approval about at this point in the second term. Bush was at 77%. Obama was at 77%. Look at this. 86% of Republicans approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing at this point. That is higher than either Obama or Bush had within their own party at this point. Trump's magic touch has not seemed to wear off yet when it comes to the Republican base.
Now, what makes this remarkable? Well, Trump has faced unprecedented media hostility since day one. While Obama got fawning coverage for 8 years and George W. Bush, he enjoyed a massive post-9/11 goodwill. Fior?
Tim, a veteran Democratic strategist James Carville sharply criticized Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar for her attacks on a specific voter group.
But she started attacking white males. And I'm saying, wait a minute, let's stop. All right, in 2024, 72% of the people that voted were white. All right, that's just a fact. Of that 72, probably 48%, or 48.5 were male. So it's somewhere around, I did the math on the thing, about 33% of the people that are going to vote are going to be white males.
Fox News reports he called the idea of winning national elections without white male voters, quote, mathematically and cultural insanity. Right now, let's talk with the host of Ringside Politics on Real America's Voice and WGSO Radio in New Orleans, Jeff Cruer. Welcome to Victory News.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So James Carville says that the Democrats cannot win an election without including white men and women voting with them. Do you agree? And also that progressives like Ilhan Omar should be ousted from the party.
I mean, if the Democrats were smart, they would. But the Democrats elevate people like the Squad and Ilhan Omar, and they're constantly praising the far left in their party. So they're doing exactly the opposite of what James Carville is recommending. So, you know, back in the days of James Carville, I mean, his candidate was Bill Clinton, and he was sort of a centrist compared to what the Democrats are today. So they've become far left, and Ilhan Omar represents that. And I don't think they're going to listen to the words of James Carville. They view him as being an old timer, but if they were smart, they'd listen to him.
Yes, it's a whole different ball game now. Oklahoma's Republican Representative Markwayne Mullin will be taking over the Department of Homeland Security after Director Kristi Noem was removed. What do you think was the tipping point for President Trump to make that change?
Well, she had, controversy from what happened in Minnesota, her comments about the two individuals that were killed. There was a scandal concerning a relationship with Corey Lewandowski that was a big question mark. She didn't address it adequately in the hearings. And then, of course, Senator Kennedy devastated her with the exposure of all these dollars that were spent on an ad campaign that really just promoted her, and also was connected to a former spokeswoman for the department. in that her ex-husband was involved in the firm. So there were so many questions about the expenditure, and it didn't look good, and she didn't handle the questions well. So I figured her time was limited after that hearing.
Right. Let's listen to Senator Elizabeth Warren's former staffer and Boston Mayor Wu's former volunteer, Kala Walsh, in Iran.
It's incredibly powerful to be standing amongst the missiles, the drones that are resisting U.S. imperialism and Zionism, that have launched historic strikes on the heart of the genocidal Zionist entity.
She goes on to praise Iran's missiles program. Jeff, isn't this woman clearly picking the wrong side in the liberation of Iran's people?
Well, I mean, you could call her a traitor. And it's very interesting that she's worked for these far-left Democrats, and then she's going over there praising a regime that is #1 in the world as far as supporting terrorism. They killed 50,000 of their people who were trying to protest for freedom. That is a brutal regime that cracked down on any of those that are trying to move their country in a more moderate direction. And she's over there praising that kind of regime. That is reprehensible and says a lot about the people who used to hire her in the past. They're pretty radical.
Absolutely. And listen to Sarah Rogers, the Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy, explain the Biden administration's use of tax dollars and staff to change maps.
What is queering the map?
So I think we were trying to make the maps more gay.
Literally?
You know, since the age of cartography, we've had pretty good maps, but maybe they weren't gay enough.
Jeff, while I'm trying to make out the making maps more gay concept here, really quick, shouldn't the Biden administration have made Chechnya and Slovakia pay for that themselves?
I'm appalled. I mean, I'm speechless with that answer. I mean, doesn't that just say everything that you need to know about the Biden administration? I mean, absolutely, yes. I mean, there certainly should not be anything that the taxpayers of this country should be paying for. That is ridiculous. Yes. I don't think I've ever heard anything more ridiculous.
Hey, me neither. Still trying to make it out. Anyway, thank you so much. Be sure to learn more about Jeff's perspective on the issues at crewera.net on his YouTube channel, or follow him on X at Jeff Cruer. Thanks for joining us today on Victory News, Jeff. Always a pleasure. Mike?
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Fior. An Indiana music teacher has won a large settlement from his former school district after he was forced to resign for refusing to call transgender students by their preferred names and pronouns. Earlier this week, the Brownsburg Community School in central Indiana agreed to pay John Klug $650,000 to settle his lawsuit against them. The district also agreed to retrain senior staff on religious discrimination. Klug resigned in 2018 after a policy change required staff to use students' preferred names and pronouns. Well, he was originally allowed to call students by their last name as part of his religious objection to the policy. He was eventually told he had to adhere to the policy, or he could resign or be fired. Georgia's DeKalb County will require all officers to complete a 1-hour LGBTQIA plus awareness and sensitivity training later this year. According to Center Square, the announcement comes after controversy over the firing of a reserve officer who told a biological male transgender individual to leave a woman's restroom in a public library. Department's training materials state that biological sex is assigned at birth, may exist on a spectrum, and that gender pronouns should be respected, including they, them. Officers are also instructed not to ask a transgender person's real name. The department has about 600 officers. Fewer.
My California Governor Gavin Newsom's radical green agenda seems to be barreling the Golden State toward disaster, with gas already crushing wallets at nearly $5 a gallon. State lawmakers and industry experts now believe prices could skyrocket past $8 by the end of 2026, thanks to what some call Newsom's cap and tax scheme and refinery shutdowns. California is reportedly one closure away from shortages reminiscent of the 1970s gas lines. Republican senators are demanding the state abandon the green energy cap and invest madness, suspend punishing taxes, and give families relief now. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Education Secretary Linda McMahon announced Thursday that many U.S. medical schools have agreed to change their nutritional education training.
I'm pleased to announce a transformative breakthrough in medical education that will reshape as the way that we train doctors in our country and deliver on President Trump's promise to end the chronic disease epidemic in America. 53 medical schools across 31 states are driving the national movement to champion nutrition education and reshape the future of medical training.
The HHS noted an estimated 1 million Americans die every year from food-related chronic illness. As Secretary McMahon emphasized the lack of nutritional education.
On average, medical schools have required only about 2 hours of nutrition education to earn a diploma. 2 hours. All despite strong evidence indicating that nutrition is a powerful tool for preventing disease. Even more striking, a recent study found that a staggering 75% of U.S. medical schools have no required clinical nutrition coursework.
Starting in the fall of 2026, medical students at participating schools will be required to complete 40 hours of nutrition education or a 40-hour competency equivalent. Tim?
Fiora, a new study suggests that only a small percentage of Americans hold a true biblical worldview, despite the nation's long Christian heritage. The research from the Cultural Research Center at Arizona Christian University found that just about 4% of U.S. adults consistently align their beliefs and decisions with core biblical teachings. The Christian Post reports that researchers say the vast majority of Americans instead adopt what they call syncretism, a mix and match approach to faith blending multiple belief systems rather than following biblical doctrine. Mike?
Thank you, Tim. Ahead, a judge's decision demands tariff refunds, and he says he will handle every case.
The executive director of the Council for National Policy, Representative Bob McEwen, will try and make sense of it all next. Stay with us.
Trust. It's something we earn. Trust is a precious thing where delivering the news is concerned. Here at Victory News, we understand that. At one time, they called Walter Cronkite the most trusted man in America. But his network, along with many others, spent the last several decades betraying that trust. Today, the major news outlets are well-funded, but bankrupt of integrity. They no longer view it their job to report the facts. Instead, their mission is to advance an agenda. This is why, at great expense, Victory News was launched. And since that launch, we worked hard to deserve your trust. And in doing so, we hope we've now also earned your involvement. We encourage and invite you to go online to govictory.com/news to find out how you can stand shoulder to shoulder in championing truth and faith with us in these momentous times. Victory News. Facts. Faith. Freedom.
A federal judge has just ordered the Trump administration to begin refunding an estimated $130 billion in tariffs after the Supreme Court ruled the duties were illegal. On Wednesday, Bill Clinton appointee Judge Richard Eaton directed U.S. Customs and Border Protection to start calculations on what companies would have paid if the tariffs had never existed. The case stems from a lawsuit by Atmos Filtration Technologies, one of more than 1,000 companies challenging tariffs imposed by Donald Trump under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Eaton says every importer who paid those duties is entitled to relief, and he made clear he alone will oversee the refund cases. The Trump administration is expected to appeal his decision. And joining us now is the executive director of the Council for National Policy, served 6 terms in the U.S. Congress representing the great state of Ohio, Bob McEwen. Welcome back to Victory News, sir.
Great to be with you.
Bob, what's your reaction to Judge Eaton's decision that he alone will oversee all of the refund cases?
Well, this is a real definition of courts gone wild. You talk about activist judges. You know, really, for 200 years, we didn't appoint people like this to the court. And if they did step out of line a couple of times, it was the Supreme Court's responsibility to say, that is not a justiciable question. That's none of your business. You don't tell the president what to do or how to do it. But what we've had in recent years is we've just had this blank check to allow these individual courts to come up with these crazy decisions, and then they have to go through the process of being overturned. The Ninth Circuit out in the appellate court between the individual district court and the Supreme Court, with absolutely the most liberal that there's ever been, is the one in California. And it ruled just this past week they're telling a local judge, you can't tell the president what to do. You don't sit top of a pyramid telling Congress and others. So this will be overturned, but there's two things about it. Number one, it should never have happened. And number two, it's the responsibility of the Supreme Court to intervene and make sure that this kind of nonsense doesn't take place, that a district court judge would tell the president how to act.
Yep, they need to crack down on that. You are correct. Now, Thursday, President Trump told Axios he must be involved in the selection of Iran's next leader. Today, Crown Prince Razi Pahlavi made this announcement.
The Iranian people have called on me to lead the transition after the regime is gone. I will do exactly that. My commitment is to ensure the transition is orderly, the country is stabilized, and Iranians determine their future through the ballot box.
That's Reza Pahlavi. All right, Bob, any prognostications of the new Iranian leader based on Donald Trump and Pahlavi's comments?
Well, anything like this, when you've had a long-going operation, you've had a president of an organization, a pastor of a church for many years, there has to be a transition usually before you go on to the next team. And the Crown Prince is the perfect person to do that. The thing is that the Central Intelligence Agency, their intelligence services, under the direction of Jimmy Carter, were responsible for the installation of Khomeini and the overthrow of the longest monarchy in the history of the world, 3,500 years. And this family was overturned by them, and I'm fearful that the intelligence service will try to stand and block the Crown Princes. But when he asked people to come to the forefront, over, as you know, millions of people stepped forward, and 35,000 of them, according to the EAU, 55,000 according to the Crown Prince, were murdered. Now, that's as many as we lost in Vietnam over a decade, and was lost in one weekend. And interestingly enough, every Democrat member of Congress was not concerned by that.
Very disturbing. So here is Congressman Brandon Gill of Texas, sir, weighing in on the growing concern over Islamic extremism and Sharia law in the United States. Take a listen.
I would rather preserve the America that we know and love so that my daughter and my son can grow up in that country, as opposed to growing up in a world where they go to the mall in Dallas, Texas, and you see 90% of the people wearing burqas and speaking foreign languages.
So, Bob, do you think Islam's ideology can be compatible with our governing system?
Well, I think very definitely not. You have to have equality. And where does that come from? It comes at the foot of the cross. It comes from our Creator. It's there in our birth certificate. The Declaration of Independence are endowed by our Creator. Now the Islamic organization does not believe in that. It is a economic system, it is a political system, and it is a religious system. It's all together. And as you notice, the mullah that was just killed, he was the grand ayatollah that was the head of state. And so you cannot have a free and elected democracy under that system. And in every way, we need to understand that Islam is not a religion. Islam is a governmental system that when it takes over in these countries, it dominates everything from top to bottom.
Very good point. Be sure to learn more about Bob McEwen and the Council for National Policy by visiting cfnp.org. Representative, thanks for joining us today for Victory News.
Thank you.
You bet. Fior.
Mike, in a lighter topic, the last story of Victory News' 5th birthday celebration series is today. Get ready to laugh with us.
It's not really us that you see on camera all the time. It's the people that are in the control room. Hey, what's up?
How are you?
I'm good. What's up, Fior?
What's going on today?
Not too much. Just getting ready for the newscast.
That's right. Just tightening up loose ends before we start.
Doing everything we can to make it all work out well. We have quality people in there that know the business.
Andy.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Can you believe that Victory News is 5 years old already?
I was going to say we should have done a headline, breaking news, this just in, Victory News celebrates its 5th birthday.
It was a blessing to be from the start of Victory News.
Reaching people, giving them hope instead of a lot of dread.
Let's turn our focus to prayer now. I thank you, Father, even now for breathing life into a movement that will not fear.
Even if it's just the same facts that CNN, Fox, or anybody else delivers, but speaking from that renewed spirit place speaking the same things resonates with our people.
The truth will set you free. Guess what? We're going to tell the story. We're going to tell the truth. We're going to tell both sides, and people are going to make a judgment on their own at home. I think the difference between being in secular news and being in faith-based news, in many respects, they ignore stories that need to be covered.
My favorite story is the one-on-one story that maybe doesn't get the big spotlight, where authenticity in what I do actually impacted a life.
What's been most memorable is how well we have covered the news.
My favorite moments are those right before we go on the air, when we're sharing jokes or funny stories.
My daughter, who's now 10, when she was 5, I get her to sit in front of the green screen.
The video's not going to be good because my pigtails are ruined.
And it was the cutest thing ever.
Podcast, I'm still a beef guy.
Huh?
Yeah.
What is this? Aren't you supposed to be working?
I'm checking out hairstyles that make you look better.
I went to our leadership and I said, I have an idea. 2026 Victory News expansion plan.
The tones are really close to the other wood in the room. I think it'll work.
Without the people that support what we are doing, there really would be no us.
Thank you for being here for all these years and backing up what we do.
Thank you to Brother Kenneth Copeland for his heart and also his obedience.
If God tells him to do something, he does it.
We want to especially thank Brother Copeland for having the vision and the forethought to empower this team to bring news to you each and every day.
Happy birthday, Victory News. Happy birthday,
Victory News.
You guys are amazing.
Happy birthday, Victory News.
And happy birthday to our contributors. Can you believe it's been 5 years?
Gloria a Dios.
Again, a special thanks to the control room crew. We appreciate you. Nothing would be on the air live if it wasn't for your hard work, Tim.
You know, I cannot unsee that Mike Garofalo shot there at the end. All right, the celebration of life for the late Reverend and civil rights leader Jesse Jackson was held today in Chicago. At Hope Baptist Church, former President Barack Obama credited the late Reverend for paving the way for him.
And it was because of that path that he had laid, because of his courage, his audacity, that 2 decades later, a young black senator from Chicago's South Side would even be taken seriously as a candidate for the presidential nomination.
Jackson ran for president twice, seeking the Democratic nomination in the 80s. Jesse Jackson was 84. Mike?
Thank you, Tim. Greg Stevens, what are we going to see tonight on Unclassified?
Hey, thanks, Mike. Listen, tonight, get some popcorn, get ready. It's on fire. Pastor Alan DiDio is on. We're going to talk about Iran. We're going to talk about prophetic things. We're going to talk about social media, your church. You don't want to miss it. Pastor Alan DiDio is on Unclassified. Get ready. This one is off the charts. Mike?
All right. Tim, quick prayer.
Yeah, Father, thank you. Thank you for this great week. We pray for our viewers